Hey everyone, it's Docfire again, and I'm here to do a little bit of, I don't know, kind of test my theory, or test my hypothesis, whatever. So where you want to look at it. And I'm still kind of digging down this blowback thing that goes on with some of the ID guns. I don't, as you, in my previous video, you saw that I did some suction timing, and depending on where I clip in, some other video I did where I did some shooting of that same gun that I had suction time that I can blow Kleenex down the barrel. I did, I shot paintballs through it. First test I did was dropping a paintball in the breech, loading one, and then putting another one in on top of it and shooting it and see if it pops that one ball up. For that's the blowback. And I had some pretty interesting results on that. I don't know where I'm going to clip it in this video. Um, and by the way, I did have blowback. Now, the one thing we have to remember is we don't fire our guns, our markers like that. We don't run them like that. We don't run it to blow Kleenex down the barrel at the field, do we? We don't run it to with a one ball in the chamber and one ball just bobbling on top without a hopper. We have some sort of force-fed hopper, um, generally in there, from a spire to a rotor or whatever, something that has a controlled force on that ball stack. And then additionally, we have a ball stack of some height, 2 to 3 ball stack on probably most modern hoppers and some of the older hoppers with feed necks a little bit higher. And so that's um, that's how we run it. So there's that aspect to it. So people they get worried about blowback. It's like, oh my God, it's my gun isn't performing. The reality, folks, is if your gun shoots paintballs at the speed you want to consistently and doesn't break them uh, due to blowback, you're not having any issues firing, then don't worry about it. That's the reality. It's not that big of a deal. Uh, Only time I would probably be concerned if I'm working really cold weather and really brittle paint. And in all reality, you don't want to run really brittle paint in an autococker. It's just not the best thing to do. You can do it. It's just not, in my opinion, the best thing to do. So the other thing is, I look at, between modern guns and then, and then modern autocockers, which what we have here, compared to, the old school stuff. There's an old side feed. Is the height of your ball stack. Everyone's gone to these nice low pro things. Well, if there is any blowback, there's a greater chance for it to push the balls up. You don't, there's a greater chance of pushing a ball up and potentially breaking it, shoving it into another ball, um, if you don't have enough weight on there to counteract that due to ball stack. And so, you potentially could have an issue there. These guns, um, has a really short feed neck, and then they're actually opened up in the back. So, you know, depending on how far your hopper goes down in there, if it goes all the way down and blocks this, it may prevent any gases that need to come out to to blow out the back of that little slot. There's some things we can probably remedy on that by notching your hopper or drilling a hole in the bottom of your hopper port to allow a little bit of that gas to flow out if you're having a major blowback issue. Like we used to see on these, they'd either mill a slit in here, um, or you'd see some holes milled in it, and that was to allow that gas to escape so you wouldn't have a lot of blowback issues. So on the other videos, um, I looked at, I took a handful of different bolts. Um, the bolt that came with the Predator, which is the soft face bolt, the Inception Designs new hard face bolt, which is a universal bolt which fits the new 2017 ID cockers, and then with an O-ring change. And I think the O-ring difference and Inception Design, Simon can maybe chime in here. I think the only difference is use 15s for the Inception Designs bodies and use 14 size O-rings for all of their cockers. I think it's the diameter he milled these grooves in. Um, shows how far this little O-ring stick. I think that's what he did. I'm not sure, or maybe a metric O-ring for the regular bodies. And so, and I did a AKA. Here's an older AKA bolt, and I did a A&S. Some people hate A&S. I don't mind their stuff. I think it's all right. I don't really, never really like their bolts that much. And I just threw this bolt in there because this bolt was kind of really a loose fit. And I said, what the hell? Let's just kind of throw a little bit of everything in there. And I took the gun that I had suction timed and I did a bobble test. And obviously, with the factory bolt, the ball bobbled and it flew up in the air, not that high, about a foot and a half. Then I put the hard face bolt in and it flew up only about 6 inches. And you can see that in the video. And then I put this bolt in. And if I recall, it hardly flew up, maybe a couple inches. And look at the video, or I'll have it clipped in here somewhere. Not that far. And then finally, put the AKA bolt in. And mind you, the AKA bolt was so this was not a snug fit. Was sealing. This was actually kind of set up for that gun, so it sealed nice. This was another loose fit. You could feel it just sitting there loosely. And so I put this bolt in, and it didn't bobble the ball at all. There was no blowback on the first shot. And then when I shot over the chrono, I had just a bobble. It didn't fly out of the ball. Didn't fly out of this. It bobbled in here, like it just had a little bit of air movement around it. And so that was interesting. So then I shot these over the chrono. Okay, so I, once again, without a hopper on, folks, just put a ball in the chamber, went on top, and shot it over the chrono. And this was shooting, well, factory bolt was set up about 288, 285, back and forth. 680 or 680 barrel, 689 Stella barrel front, and then Nelson Anarchy, kind of old Nelson Anarchy, had some dimples, but that shouldn't affect the FPS. It's actually pretty consistently sized stuff. And this was shooting about 311, if I recall. And so the low 300s and the high 290s. This was surprisingly at like 305. It's really interesting. This went down to about 295. I think we had one 300 shot out of here, ball variant. So at the high 300, at the low 295, I think. So it's pretty interesting on that. And I'm like, okay, so just by changing the bolt, I increased the velocity. I didn't change anything on the gun. And I'm like, okay, what's going on there? Why is it doing that? Why, you know, what's the deal? So it's, now granted, it's a completely Inception Designs gun. It's got their valve, their hammer, their springs. There's no other parts on that gun outside of the hopper that isn't an Inception Design part. Hopper screws and airline. And so by just changing the bolt, I changed the velocity significantly. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. So I go, why is it? I'm trying to think, what did I do to do that? So I went and looked at these guys a little closer. And I looked at the size of the holes. If I can get these up there. I'm going to try, actually. No, that doesn't work. I need the light. Come on, focus. I don't know if it's going to focus. There we go. Okay, so you can see that the AK bolt is just a tad bit, the inlet hole's a tad bit wider and a tad bit longer, and I can measure this out. Excuse me, guys, I got some allergies that are driving me nuts. Okay, I'm gonna just try to set that in there, kind of at an angle. I can get this up into the light, the reflection off of it. Of course, it's going to be nothing but reflection. I'm going to read it out. It's right at um, 0.03, or excuse me, 0.38, point, 0.308, I think. Yeah, 38. Okay, well, that's close enough. I don't know why I didn't get my digital calipers. And this is under that. This is at 0.278. 0.278. Let's see what this one is. Just a little bit bigger, 0.281. So it's interesting. So the AKA input port is much larger. So the other thing I did is I go, okay, I'm going to measure, I'm going to stick this in where the bolt face, this face, rests against this shelf here. And just see what the farthest in inside diameter is. And I have at 3.336. And this guy, do the same. And I have basically 0.4. It's 0.33399. Excuse me. Allergies are killing me right now during the winter. Don't ask me why. So yeah, I unglued it for you guys. I'll have to glue it back on. So I can't stuff this guy. If I bring this down to the shelf on here, it's going to go in deeper. So I have to kind of line these guys up so I know how far I went in on the last one. So if I can do this with, okay, everything is lined up. Got the pin in there. I'm going to put the shelf on this one, the shelf, so it shows about the same height. And I'm on this one, and I know you guys probably can't read this. The lights are annoying. Move that light off. Got a hot light there. Okay, so this one's at, if I think it's about the same, it's at 3.381, if I'm about the same. And this is 0.3, excuse me, not 381, this is 3.381. I'm looking upside down. So they're essentially the same. Okay, so they're internally, this hard face bolt and the soft face bolt internally are the same diameter at that depth. All right, and so what I started thinking, I go, so why all the blowback? Well, these, they fit in the body and they're right at that diameter. They're not a snug fit. They're really almost like a shock tech bolt and a standard body. It didn't have O-rings on it, and it just slipped right in. Actually, I have one to demonstrate that with. An older shock tech bolt and a cocker body. It was, basically a slip fit. Now, the Deception Designs bolts, they have a little bit more resistance. They do have a little sealing, but it's right on that verge of where it's a nice smooth, just very little static force on those O-rings. Okay, and excuse me. So they just, they're right on that ceiling edge of being a really snug fit, and they're just a nice almost fall through fit. So let me just, it's a very little force. I mean, it doesn't fall down. I have a barrel on here. Let me take the barrel off. It doesn't fall down. I mean, when I get down to the bottom, obviously it's gonna hit the O-rings. And I can almost just, I can get it to. So you guys see what I'm saying? It's just a nice loose fit. So the interesting thing is, it's not a super tight fit. It's not a super loose fit. This was a loose fit. This was a looser fit in that Deception Designs body when I shot it, and my feet per second went up and my blowback went away. So my theory is that these inlet holes and the chamber to the face of the bolt is just a little too small, and it puts a little too much back pressure on the amount of volume that's coming out of the valve or the flow, because it's also a high flow valve. And what it's doing is it's blowing up around past these O-rings. So you have a couple things that are in play here. You have, let's use my body here. I don't need a barrel. So let's put a bolt in here. This is just my cutaway body. So the diameter of the hole in this lower is the same diameter, if I recall, in the bottom of this. If not, it's a little bit larger, but I think it's the same diameter. If this hole's a little bit larger than this hole, or if they're not lined up perfectly, like if they're right at the same size and they're not lined up, then yeah, you're going to have air that's going to want to blow around these O-rings. It's going to want to blow around that, especially on a loose fit. So what my theory is that you have a ball in here, you have the ball chambered, right, and you have this massive air. You have this standard air pressure in front of the barrel. Okay, this is static air that's just sitting there. All right, and then you have a chamber now. We have the ball, a small space between the ball face, the bolt face, and then everything lined up. And so the hammer hits the valve and releases the gas, and it blows up and it hits the back of that ball and it starts pushing that ball. It's got to overcome a couple forces. One force is the friction of your ball to barrel match. Okay, so it's got to overcome that, and then it's got a high pressure here and it's got a lower pressure in front, so it's going to be pushing that ball through that air, right? It's going to be having to push that air out, and that's the porting helps on that, and helps exhaust some of that air in front of the ball. And so you're creating a high pressure behind that ball. And if it's not releasing that high pressure, the path of least resistance type of thing, if it's not, the path of least resistance isn't necessarily going down the barrel, it has some, it's somewhat equal, or has some a path that it can go back out, either back out the gun or back up the feed tube. And so that's so one of the theories is that the hole's too small. The chamber that the air's got a passage as it expands out, and kind of have some drawings here, some drawings for you. This is probably a long video. So this is a side cutaway of the AKA, and then the Inception designs. And so the AKA's got almost like very much a horn, and this isn't to scale, obviously, not to scale. And this passageway, after it transfers, after the air comes from the body, out the body's transfer hole into the bolt, this little area is really short, and it expands out really quick. And it expands out to a face that's almost the diameter of the ball, okay? The Inception Designs one is this transfer tube doesn't expand out till later. It doesn't get wider until later. It doesn't fan out into a horn until later in this bolt. And so it's the same diameter or a slowly increasing diameter as it goes out. And kind of like a tune port kind of concept, I guess. And so there's that aspect. So you're going to be building pressure up there. It can't escape. There isn't it's trying to get gas through, and it's got to shove it through a small straw. So yeah, think of it like a chocolate shake in a straw, right? So you're trying to get a thick chocolate shake through a straw, and the diameter of the straw is the smaller the straw, the harder, the more pressure it's going to take. And so think of it that way, all right? And don't take that. Don't go down the dirty route with that, I suppose. So that was one aspect that I was looking at. I go, okay, so is that pressure building up, and then was it blowing around past this front O-ring because there's already stuff, the air is already moving that way, and then it's blowing it up that feed neck? It could be. That's my theory, you know, and I'm trying to test all that, my hypothesis so far from my testing. And so the other thing I looked at was the bolt faces. Okay, so that's the face of the bolt and how it seats in the chamber. So take that off. And there's a lot of little aspects here that are in play. So take that bolt out. So the A&S bolt. Okay, A&S bolt, and same with like the shock techs. They have. Let me get this up here. Focus. They have a really sharp edge, right? So that edge goes right to the outside, and I never liked it because I always felt that it was something I could clip a ball on, and it would you know cut the ball. So we look at it in here. That bolt face, essentially the air face, the face of the bolt, it goes all the way to the edge of the body, essentially, right? We'll put this shock tech in here, maybe right out to the edge of the body, okay? Then we put the AK in. I get the light in there. And it's almost out. It's got a 16th of an inch. But then we shove in, let's put in the first ID bolt, which is the universal. And it doesn't. See that? The light on there just right. It doesn't go all the way to that. It's actually, obviously, because it's chamfered here, right? It's been down, and obviously the same with this one, but then additionally it has the center crossbars, which makes that soft face as another restrictive area, right? So my theory is that having like the ANS is nice and sharp, right? Um, the AKA's got a little 16th of this and of a from the edge of the face of the bolt to the body, and then the ID has that very chamfered area here. And so if I'm having pressure that's um, in front of the ball, grab a ball here, okay, that's in front of the ball, and I'm building pressure there, right? And that pressure is trying to push that ball down the barrel, but it's overcoming that movement. It needs to find another path. Uh, do we create a nice leading edge to start pushing that pressure back because it's got this little chamfered edge? It's kind of like a port backwards. Does that assist that? Because when you have it on an AKA bolt, that that ball, there's less of a chance for the air to. It's harder for the air to wrap around. It's got a sharp corner. It's got a 90-degree bend. It's got to go around essentially. This it's chamfered. It doesn't have to go around a 90-degree bend. Uh, the AKA, it still has a 90-degree bend it needs to go over. Shock Tech is the one that actually really hugs that ball and almost seals that ball against the face of the Shock Tech. Uh, and and then we have the rubber face ball. Now the rubber face is interesting. It doesn't go in anywhere, right? This one, the ball recesses in the face of that bolt. This one, the ball, depending on how stiff this centerpiece is, it's got to push in there, and technically was trying to seal, but that's a significant amount of force. I don't know if it's truly going to push this in every time. Be interesting. I may cut these little tangs out, just cut those off and see what changes. That may be really interesting because this technically seals, right? It technically seals up in this chamber. It's got a nice sealing on it. So um, is that what it is? Um, it seals up really nice. And is it blowing past? Is it able to blow past that? I don't know. Or is it the fact that we have a nice seal on the front, but we can't get air through quick enough? We have restrictions somewhere between the bottom of the body, the output of the valve actually, and the back, the output of the bolt. There's a restriction in there, and where I think restriction from testing is that there was less restriction with an AK bolt comparative to the soft face bolt. So, so do we reduce restriction? Do we cut this away? Um, How you can buy these, you know, they're not that expensive. You can buy some extra ones, cut it away. I have a spare one that I'm going to cut away. And I want to see. That's one of the things I'm gonna do. I may include that in here. So there may be those restrictions. So we have the restrictions. Let's go back and recap. We have uh, kind of line things up here. Put a barrel here. So we have the air coming out of the valve, the restriction, initial restriction of the inlet of the bolt. Okay. The secondary restriction or potential restriction is the pathway through the bolt. Okay. And then the third potential is whatever's on the face of the bolt. Okay, that's a restriction. Then obviously there's the restriction of the ball being stuck in the barrel, you know, pushed down a barrel for friction, and then any air that's in front of it that it has to escape out, exhaust out that barrel. So that's all force that valve air is trying to overcome. Okay, and if it can't overcome that, it's going to try to find the path of least resistance out and potentially a path of least resistance. We talked about the O-ring sealing here, the chamfered edge here on some of these. It may go past that. Um, I really think it's maybe some of the sealing and then the restriction in here. And so it's going to blow past maybe initially a good seal, but it's going to overcome that seal and blow past it. So that's my theory, guys. You know, tear it up. I don't care. You know, do your own testing. The beautiful thing about this stuff is, you know, we've got a company that's making cool stuff again, and you know what, I get to tinker on it a little bit every once in a while. You know, I get to have a little fun with it, and you know, test what works good for you. What may work good in one area may not work good in another area, and you find out that, hey, look at this bolt works best for me, or you find out that this bolt works good, this soft face, or you've modified this soft face. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to destroy the gun. It's like drilling an eye in it or something like that. It's not destroying, just changing it. Um, Try changing it. Try changing it a little bit. See what happens. Like I said, I'm going to see if I can do a short video sometime this week on how it will shoot without these guys in here. So just trim those away nice with a nice razor blade. And so I have the rubber face. I have this rubber soft tip because it's still a soft tip. It still bends in here, right? A little bit. And the other thing is folks are having trouble with these tips blowing off. Well, maybe that's the other theory. I mean, I'm just thinking about just now. If these are blowing off, then there's either not a good fit with the rubber. Uh, I've never had one blown off for me, but I've talked to friends that have. Um, or is there enough pressure back here that it's trying to overcome some restrictions on this tip? Try just cutting that off and see what happens. What's the worst thing you have to do? You have to order another, I don't know how much they cost, $5 for rubber tips. I think they're the same ones that you can buy the Exalt ones. You can buy Planet Eclipse. I think they're all the same ones. I think he uses those same tips. Give that a try. See if that fixes your issue. If that fixes it, that little free, you know, we all love free in paintball, that free modification, if that makes a world of change and blowback issues that you're maybe concerned about, or it increases velocity, or if it makes your gun shoot better in your area, your climate, then great, go for it. That's my theory. So anyway, once again, a down and dirty video from Docfire. I hope I got everything right. Like I said, I'm not an expert in this stuff. I've been playing paintball for a long time, so it doesn't make me an expert or anything, just makes me a guy that's been playing paintball for a long time. So I test a lot of stuff and see what works good for me, and hopefully I can find stuff that works good for you guys also. But once again, support um, Inception Designs. Uh, who's truly making an innovative Gawker and all the parts anymore? Not many people. And he's really supporting us that really like shooting these guns. And so he's trying to make a family business out of it. And let's support him. And let's support all people that are making Gawker parts like Meteor and Shock Tech, and some of the folks that are starting to make some more stuff out there. Killshot Customs. I'm not sponsored by any of these folks. Don't want to be. I'd rather buy my stuff and be able to give honest reviews. And so let's support those folks out there that are making stuff, that they're trying to listen to their customers and trying to make the things that fit the need that's out there, the want, and so and then making them accessible. That's one of the other things. It's We could say we're going to make something and then it never hits the market. It's kind of irritating. And but anyway, once again, down and dirty video, Docfire. I like to talk a lot, so you guys have a great one.